Yeah, round of applause. I like it. I like a vibe. Welcome, everyone. We're still at Politico's Competitive Europe Summit. I'm still Peter Haag, the same person from 5 seconds ago. And now we're going to talk about, we already talked a lot about European weaknesses, but now we're going to talk about a European strength, research, because Europe is known to be an R&D powerhouse, yet with a lot of challenges. It's also a challenge to bring that research to the market, to say, and we also have to stay on top, of course, in research, and we're going to speak about that with two esteemed speakers. First of all, I have Maria Cristina Russo here, the Director for Global Research at the Commission's Research Department, and then we also have Connie Aerts, a professor in astrophysics, that sounds impressive, and a board member at the European Research Council. Thanks both for being here. I want to dive with both of you in, I think that's one of the big stories of this year, of course, is the US making very deep cuts in the funding they have for science and research. And of course, that could be an opportunity for Europe to bank on that. Let's maybe start with you, Connie, if I can address you with your first name. The ERC is one of the EU's main bodies to really fund research. Do you already see an impact of those US funding cuts? Are US researchers now begging the EU for money?
Well, we do see an impact indeed, and that is good news, I would say, for European research and innovation. Having said that, the ERC is, of course, has always been open to any top researchers in the world. Now there are activities to make a better deal, let's say, internationally, given the current context. And so in the advanced grant call that was closed recently, we indeed saw an immense increase in applications from scientists residing currently outside of Europe. And that's great news because, of course, excellence in science, it demands an international approach, and we want the best talents. And that's better for everybody, for the whole European Union and its citizens.
And if you say an immense increase, for example, researchers from the US, how many applicants did we have?
I don't know exactly how many applicants, but we have a 30% increase, and a lot of them come from really outside Europe currently. So we really want to embrace these talents, of course, within the competition that we have. And so in that sense, there's also a new initiatives to people to move their labs here, because that's not so trivial. So recently, an extra 1 million euros is available for each applicant that makes it through the competition, because we do realize that moving all the groups here, that's an influx of new brains, let's say. It does come with challenges, and we need to help these applicants maximally, let's say.
If it's such a success, we could say, like, why don't we even raise the budget further? And that's maybe a question for the Commission. Let's throw in some money and get the researchers here, right?
Well, first of all, good afternoon to everybody. Very happy to be here. That's a really good question. But the Commission has been really very active on that with the so-called Choose Europe for Science. We have launched this initiative with 500 million euros that were devoted to Choose Europe for Science. It was already in May. And we have given the support to the member states and the universities that want to attract students from outside Europe. Not later than today, there has been the publication of a call for the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions in line with the Choose Europe, which mobilized, I don't remember exactly, 10 or 20 million euros for that. So we have put the money in that. We have done so. But 2 points are very important. It's not only a question of funds. We need, first of all, to be much better in advising this possibility, in making this known to the outside world. For example, when there was this decision in the US to stop supporting the research on vaccines, we should have been saying, hey, we have the Choose Europe initiative in Europe. Please come here, we support you. Second point is that the European Commission can do, but it can be effective and have impact only if we do those kind of things with the member states and the universities. So we need really to act together in order to bring Europe as what it is, the most attractive place to do research. And why do I say the most attractive? And Connie, I'm sure you would agree with me, because researchers can conduct research in Europe respecting the academic freedom, which is at the core of research, and the freedom is at the core of the European Union project.
But I often have the feeling that Europe is still much too cautious on this front, because if I were the European Commission, I would just open an office at the Harvard campus and say, like, come to us, here is funding, here is grants. And I would shout it from the rooftops. Shouldn't you go harder on this?
Well, look, the European Commission has been very active in that. As you said, I was director for the global affairs. Now I'm director for prosperity. We had this campaign on Choose Europe where we have carried out for the last 20 years, in which we have our science counselors in Washington. They do visit the major universities in the US, explaining which are the possibilities that exist to come to Europe and to work in Europe. And that was done before the Choose Europe initiative.
And is that being sped up now?
Sorry?
Is that now being increased or speeding
yeah,
up?
it has been increased, but it was done already. So, you know, we've been very, very active on that. Okay. Let me give you also an example, just to be concrete. I remember when I was director for global affairs in 2026, more than 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, we have concluded an administrative arrangement with the Department of State of the US. Indeed, because there was a problem for the MIT and other universities, students to come to Europe for some kind of legal questions that I will not detail here. And we've been to the MIT, we've been explaining, listened to what was the problem, and then we have done this administrative arrangement which took out the burden from the scientists from the MIT and the other publicly funded universities in order to make it easier to come for Europe, to Europe.
I also want to add maybe that for the moment already, you know, we allow scientists to spend 50% of their working time elsewhere, because the best science is, of course, global, international. Like, take not only my own field, I'm in the universe, so I'm everywhere. But scientists, they do have to be connected globally, and so this was already a strong point.
And you're well connected to the Belgian universities, of course. Have you seen examples of US researchers or even total research groups being attracted by Belgian universities?
Yes, indeed, that occurs. I know several ERC grantees actually like that, who moved their group and mainly their idea to Europe. And the researchers here with an ERC grant, they lead teams, relatively small teams. They are totally international. My team has team members from Australia, South America, North America, India, China, so anything. And so it's this diversity that is allowed by the ERC grants that makes us very, very competitive. Really, the ERC is a European flagship. I know of no other similar program that gives freedom to the PI to do their passionate research, to develop it on a long-term scale, right? And so this is critical.
Going back to my initial question, can you put a number on the number of researchers or research groups that have come from the US to here in the past year?
In the past, I don't have an exact number in my head. I only noticed that with the extra Choose Europe initiative and with the extra budget that we foresee, there is an increase in the number of applicants. Of course, we have to measure that because now we're entering the competition. It takes a while before you know the outcome because, of course, these external researchers also have to go through the competition like anybody else. So if you could ask me that question again in a year or 2 years from now, we would be in better shape to give you exact statistics.
I will definitely gladly do so. Let's talk about another big development in the EU research world. That's the next EU budget. In July, the Commission President said, like, okay, Horizon Europe, the next budget, let's double it from 95 billion to 170 billion in the next EU budget. I can imagine that's great news.
Oh yes, indeed, that is great news for us.
Were any bottles of champagne popped at the...
Yes, we had some bottles of champagne, but we also want to open even more bottles of champagne when it will be approved by the Council and the Parliament, because now there is the next step, which is the interinstitutional negotiation, which is complex, but we're very confident because the Council and the Parliament have been very strong in defending the need for a self-standing research program within the context of the newly proposed European Competence Fund. And also they've been very strong in saying that the budget for the research program should have been substantially increased. So we are very confident that the negotiations will keep up the budget. What we hope, and then we will open even more bottles of champagne, is that it could even be increased.
The question is also, is bigger also better? Because of course, if you spend money, you need to have value for that money. I will come to you in a second. But how do you as a Commission ensure that when you put more money on the table, that nothing is wasted and that there is good value for money?
I mean, if there is a strong drive of the Commissioner for Startups, Research and Innovation, Mrs. Zarajeva, is really to have impact. She was very clear when she had the hearing at the European Parliament, and if there is a guiding line that we have as DG Research and Innovation, it has been to really change what needed to be changed in order to have impact. We were very grateful to people like Connie that participated in so-called Hater Group to publish, which published this report on the evaluation of the Horizon Europe program. The report Align, Act and Accelerate, which also looked at the shortcomings of the current program and gave some lines to follow in order to improve it. So we've taken it into account. And the program now is designed to be much more policy-oriented, and there's also the link with the European Competence Fund, simpler for the applicants to have an easier access.
I want to talk a bit about that link with the European Competitiveness Fund, because isn't there a risk that now every research will be looked at through the lens of competitiveness? Everything has to ensure that Europe becomes more competitive, because what does that mean for basic fundamental research?
Well, let me grab back to why more budget, because that's connected to your question, you see. When we looked of the past almost 20 years at ERC level, all the applications that were ranked as scientifically excellent, because there's only one criterion, right? It's very simple. Let's stick to the elegance of simplicity. Scientific excellence is what is being rewarded. There were twice as many proposals that could get funded. Now, if you look at the research on investment and the results, you know, patents, startups, etc., then you are guaranteed of success. But half of the applicants went to the drawer because there was a lack of funds. So from an economic perspective, it is highly advantageous to adhere to that. Now, of course, you need to make sure that this competitiveness is built in the way the ERC operates. And so it's very simple. Two basic things, scientific excellence, and then the ERC is run by scientists, practitioners who know best how to do it, completely independently, and that's what is critical for the low technology readiness level
research. Aren't you afraid of this very competitiveness pitch, because astrophysics, that's not really about competitiveness,
Of course it is. It has everything to do with competitiveness, because we want to act faster and better than our, you know, global colleagues.
Okay.
This is passionate researchers
you're very
have that
passionate,
in them. Don't ever say that we can't compete.
We can keep astrophysics, okay.
But I mean, if I may add to that also, the fact that we do have a self-standing research program, which is built, I will not go into details now, on 4 pillars, out of which in one, which is the pillar 2, there is a part, an envelope, which it's a part which is linked really to the competence fund. But the program is much bigger than that. So obviously the drive is competitiveness, and as Connie said, competitiveness it has to be seen in a broader way. And what we're doing in basic research, it's very important for competitiveness. But the program, the proposal for the next framework program is not only the competitiveness fund. It is in synergy with it, but it's much bigger. And indeed, the reason why we have this self-standing research program, it's also because we do want to continue to support basic research, which is also what makes Europe stronger.
And sorry. Another major change for Horizon Europe is that it used to fund only research for civic purposes. Now we're also going for more military-oriented or dual-use research, indeed, like research that can serve both civic and military purposes. I want to ask to you, like, okay, how is the Commission going to govern that? Because that's, of course, opening also a potential box of problems, because how are you going to make sure that this doesn't end up in the wrong hands?
Yes, so you might also have asked me the reverse question. How did we ensure beforehand that the research that we were funding was not used for dual use? Because in the ATO report, there was really an example, some concrete examples. One could also say, I don't know, you support the research which is for better food, and the soldiers eat better food, and then they can fight better. You see, the question is a bit complex, because the line where you divide what is civil and what is can be used for military application is not so easy, and that's why I intervened when you said defense, because we do not propose to fund defense, but we have taken out this exclusion that existed in the previous program, which made it impossible to finance research that would have a dual-use application. So that is the question. For me, the possibility to have a dual-use application is not only a need in the current times, but it also gives much more clarity for the program. We certainly will have to have a specific criteria building on what already exists now in terms of ethics, in terms of closing some of the actions of the framework program. We already have now some possibilities through the Article 22.5, 22.6 of the Horizon Europe. So we will have to work on that to make sure that there is not a misuse of this possibility. But I believe it's much clearer.
As Commission, you need capacity to keep track of all that, because it's a massive budget and it can end up anywhere, right?
Yes, but this is the work that we are very well equipped to do. Obviously, when you speak about the massive budget, the Commission will need, we will need to be fully organized, and I'm sure we will be, to deal with a bigger program and keep track of the different aspects of it. And we will do it also for the dual use. But the concept that I would like to pass on here is that not only it is a necessity, but we had already a system now in place to which we had to screen the projects now to make sure that they were not dual use. You see. So we are not, we are building on that, and I believe it's going to be even easier for the implementation, provided that we will set up the criteria that certainly will be put in place when we go to the implementation phase.
What's your take on that, on this shift?
Well, this is for the ERC is quite different, if I may take the fundamental research again. So basic research is welcoming any topic in any science field, irrespective of future use or not. It's essential to keep this open non-directionally to all topics, because we know that doing it this way is a big success towards innovation, but we don't know in which topic exactly or by which scientist the applied research will come and the skyrocketing success of innovation will come, but we just don't know from which topic. So for ERC, it is really at the level of the lowest of all technology readiness level, it's not a criterion at all, because we know that this is the best way how to have translational research from the very basic ERC type grant applications all the way to the innovation.
But if for a moment you put off your ERC hat and you yourself as a researcher and you see that the Commission is putting much more money on the table also for dual use research that can end up anywhere. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that?
That's, for me, fine from the Commission point of view, but me as a fundamental scientist, having ERC grants, so I can't put the hat off completely because they made me who I am. But I want to do my research in my way on a long-term basis with a high risk. There is a high-risk component in all these ERC grant proposals because else they wouldn't have been selected. And so this is really the foundation of the house of innovation, you could call it, right? And any house is stronger and better built if the foundation is done well. So we need that double-up funding to make sure that this basis is being done well and smart with respect to the patents and the innovative technology that will come later, years later, and we don't know which one it will be that will be the success story. So we need this broad pool of fundamental science.
I want to go a bit further and yet stay a bit with the same topic. Israel, the Commission, well, research was one of the areas where the Commission proposed to cut some ties with Israel, especially in the domain of the EIC, the European Innovation Council. Can you give us an update how much Israel, which is an associated country under Horizon Europe, is still benefiting from Horizon Europe? And are you confident that EU-funded research is not ending up or helping the war in Gaza?
Yes, let me say that we strongly believe that through research we need to build bridges and not walls. And that is a statement that I would like to make. We've been very proud of the work that we have done on science diplomacy, for example, with the support of some specific initiatives in the past, like Sesam, the synchrotron in Jordan that gathered Israeli and Palestinian researchers. So this is I'm saying that because obviously we are very concerned, attentive to the humanitarian situation in Gaza, but I'm saying that what we want to do through research is building bridges. Okay? Now, in terms of the Israel participation to Horizon Europe, there has been always, for Israel, like for any other participation, a screening in terms of the ethical review of the projects, which is continuing. And for the moment, as you mentioned, there was a proposal which was put forward to partially suspend part of the Horizon Europe agreement with Israel on the EIC accelerator, because it was there that one could foresee a more problematic issue of the research. This proposal has not been adopted by the Council, so the situation has not changed as such. But the European Commission has been very proactive in also bringing forward other important proposals with regards to Israel, which I would like to recall, that implied the proposal of putting some sanctions to some of the extremist ministers and colonies, and then also to suspend part of the trade agreement, so that it is a broader démarche, a broader approach that the Commission has put forward, where research is one of the elements. And again, I would conclude to say that we are very attentive to the situation, and I would state again that we want to build bridges through research.
Despite the Commission proposal being stalled in Council, is there currently something you're doing to keep tab of Israel participation in Horizon Europe? Are these projects being extra screened? Is there supplementary control on this?
That we always do. We always do. We always keep track of the participation of associated countries.
Yeah, but is that now boosted given the whole situation?
We always do. We are very attentive. Obviously, we have been very attentive to that. Certainly, we are very attentive to the situation, and we are looking very carefully at the different ongoing projects, yes.
So you're certain that EU-funded research is not being misused by Israel?
Certainty is is a quality that sometimes goes beyond the human possibilities. But what I want to say, and I want to be very clear on that, is that we have put all the instruments in place.
Okay. I want to also pass on this topic to you, because at many universities there have been protests about the ties that universities have with Israel. Even at Belgian universities at the start of the academic year, there were massive protests. How do you feel about the whole topic, and about how the topic is being approached by both universities and politicians?
Well, let me first say that I think nobody doubts the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and wants that to stop as soon as possible. From an ERC perspective, what is the role of the ERC? It's to select and fund PI-driven science, wherever they come from in the world, right? There are, of course, checkups in place, but our role is to select the best projects individually, right? We are the scientists, and we have that responsibility, right? The politicians also have their responsibility, right? And any university has their national and even local policies. That is up to them to decide, I would say. From an ERC perspective, we are tasked to make the best out of PI-driven research. And that's how I look at the thing.
Yeah. And is the ERC putting in place certain things to check?
Well, it's as being said. I mean, we are taking the eligibility of all applicants, and if they are eligible, then they are eligible, right? And that's what we look at. Aside from that, we look at the scientific excellence. That's the criterion. That's what we base ourselves on. This has proven to work the past 20 years, and we have like more than 15,000 grantees. We have good statistics to evaluate the effectiveness of how this works. So let's not change the flagship of Europe in terms of fundamental science and in terms of competition, by the way.
Okay. I briefly want to open this panel for questions from the audience. I see that everyone is on his phone to consult all the topics or to ask ChatGPT to come up with a good question. So if there is, if there is anyone with a burning question, I hope I can see the hands being raised, because there is a massive light in my... Yeah, there is one there. I think there is a microphone coming to you in a bit, if you have a moment to wait for that. And please keep your answer, your question very concise and to the point.
Sure. My question is about students who've graduated and entered the work field after getting a master's in, say, quantum physics, or something as important to GPS as astrophysics, for example. But those in the workforce that are now unemployed, not in the academic stream, how are you reaching out to those scientists?
Yes. I guess I can put my STEM hat on and respond to that question. First of all, I hardly know of any STEM employees at master or PhD level that are unemployed. We have way too few of them. And so any, let's say, professor in academia working either within the university or intersectorally with industry realizes that these STEM diploma people are top-notch technology-driven experts. So I don't think there is a problem in underemployment at all. I don't know of it. It's the opposite. We get called really on a daily basis, like, can't you produce more of these experts, particularly in informatics, computer science-driven fields. So there is no underemployment. It's the opposite. It's how should we attract more and more students in our technology-driven societies into STEM topics. And there, diversity for me is a very important word, because right now, sometimes people who are not so familiar in their families and in their social environment with technology-driven topics often think, wrongly so, that they are not suitable for this type of study. I'm mainly thinking about the young women and the girls, where it's really important to show them that science is teamwork, it's international, it is fun, and curiosity and passion is what brings us together to deliver those employees to industry and to society as a whole. I think this is really an important point, and we should never, ever underestimate the aspect of curiosity. Kids are curious, and if we embrace that and later on fund their research projects, well, then it's very simple. They will be the innovators of the future. So for me, this is a critical aspect. No underemployment at all, on the very contrary.
I keep in mind the diversity and curiosity. I'm looking into the audience to see if there were other questions. If not, I still have a lot. Oh, there is one here on the second row.
Hi, thank you both so much. You talked a lot about what Europe is trying to do to lure some of these scientists and researchers who've lost funding in the US, whose labs are having to be shut down. But I'm wondering if there's enough money, even if you were to give all the funding everybody wants, to make up for the lack of that academic research. You know, the US government is such a huge funder, despite the very best efforts of the EU. Do you think that's still going to impact science, impact the places that this research is getting done? Will it have a net impact on science throughout Europe and throughout the world?
Well, thank you very much for this last question. We already said that money for research has been doubled, so that's already a good sign. And obviously money is important, but as Connie said, there is curiosity, and with curiosity goes the academic freedom and the freedom of research. And Europe is very strong on that, and we can attract researchers also, and especially for that. And I am not a researcher myself. I'm a commission official. I do prepare the policy orientation that are adopted in the commission, but I speak with a lot of researchers, and this is very important. And also Europe is very attractive in terms of living conditions that we should not underestimate. On the top of that, we are mobilizing all the efforts to strengthen this attractivity. For example, we adopted a new strategy with specific actions on research and technology infrastructures that was adopted by the Commission on the 15th of September, with some specific new possibilities to support even financially the building up and the development of research and technology infrastructures. We are now preparing a strategy with relevant actions on AI in science to set up a resource for AI science in Europe. So we are really mobilizing all the efforts and tools in order to make Europe even more attractive, together with the budget and also the academic freedom. Which
about that proposal, the AI for Science proposal, that's coming next week. Politico is a news organization.
Yeah,
you can break some news on stage.
I seen that yesterday. You already gave some. I was working on that, and then my colleagues at Politico.
Tell us, what will be in the proposal?
Yes, you can invite me on the 8th of October. I will be very pleased.
Or you read it on Politico.
Yes,
we had the scoop.
You wrote it yesterday. We have a package on apply AI and AI in science, and there we are putting forward a strategy to really boost up and put together the different strands on the AI in science, and we would set up this race, this resource for AI science, and I'll leave you with a bit of suspense.
Or you read it on Politico again. Thanks for that little teaser. I don't think we have much more time left. Maybe
can I hook onto that question a little bit? As a scientist at very low TRL levels, I think what we're doing great in Europe is to also do low TRL research, but then we have to scale it up, right? And that requires trust-based approaches towards scientists and innovators. And I think there we can learn on how to give a more breathing ground and science capital, actually, to convince industry of investing also in translational research. That is, to me, something that we should be not afraid of, less afraid of than we are perhaps now.
I think that's a great one to close off this panel. As a takeaway, I hear that we're doing a lot to make sure that some of the US researchers are coming here. And I still keep in mind the diversity and curiosity. I think that's a nice one to wrap up, to speak about research, which is not done often enough, I find, in Brussels, but we didn't now. Thanks for that, my two speakers. And to the audience, you now have a network coffee to look forward to. We'll be back in 30 minutes. Thank you very much.